Welcome to What the Flick, everybody. We're here to discuss Girls, the third episode of the final season. It's Grace and Anna there in the middle, Alonso and Ben. This is one of the episodes that...
Say the title.
What is the title?
Oh, I didn't want to say it, but it's American Bitch.
Oh, American Bitch. Right. The name of the alternate name, maybe, of the Philip Roth.
Right.
Of the Philip Roth
When
novel.
she was good.
So what a... this is why I think people either love the show or hate the show. I mean, this, I was talking to Jank about this episode. I was like, you should watch this episode. And then he started talking. And I was like, you know what, don't watch this episode. It could stand on its own. It could be part of it doesn't have to be part of Girls.
It could be a short film.
Yeah, it reminded me of
really
the episode from season 5 that brought me back into Girls after sort of like fading away for seasons 3 and 4, which was the episode where Marnie reconnects with Charlie. That was a standalone episode.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I thought this episode was sort of for Hannah, where you see a great deal of personal growth, but in an episode that is isolated to one sort of encounter. And I thought it was really powerful, but I wasn't sure initially how I would feel about it. And then I think they did do a nice full arc here.
Yeah, it was absolutely a powerful episode. And, I'm kind of like you, Grace, where I go back and forth from loving the show to hating the show. And this episode I loved because it made me personally very uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. It made me uncomfortable because in this episode, Hannah is a writer who apparently in a small outlet exposed another writer.
A famous writer.
For allegations against him made by women, I guess, who claimed that they had been sexually assaulted by him or something like that. And so...
but let me just real quick, because I think it's not even quite... It's not sexually assaulted, it's...
Non-consensual.
It's sexually coerced.
Coerced,
right,
yeah.
Which is what made it interesting. If it's sexually assaulted, it's not a fun topic of...
There's no gray area.
Yeah,
there's no gray area.
Figuring out,
right.
was it consensual, was it not,
Right.
was it coercion, what does that factor in?
It was just uncomfortable, and it was uncomfortable from my perspective based on what I do for work and based on how many times stories like that have come up. And, we as members of the media have to, dissect the story and try to figure out who's guilty, who's not guilty, and we have to adjudicate it as if we're there and we know what's going on. And it made me see a side of the story, at least visualize a side of the story that is difficult to visualize otherwise. And that's what the person who's dealing with the accusations is dealing with behind the scenes, and the negative impact that it has on his life, regardless of whether or not the person writing or reporting on that knows what the facts are. But then there's a twist in the end where I'm just like, I knew it.
Yeah. Well, I love episodes like this. I've learned that they're called bottle episodes. Like you isolate a couple of characters and you build an episode around them. And there are some classic ones. Pack Your Bags is the one. The Mad Men one. There was Fly on. Breaking Bad, The Fight on Masters of Sex. Yeah, there've been a couple on this show. There was the one with Marnie and Charlie. The one with there's the one with Hannah and the guy played by Patrick Wilson.
Oh yeah,
remember the older guy that she's
2?
involved with?
Yeah,
that was
they spend the day together. Yeah,
and I like these episodes, because I think it's a kind of writing that series TV so often doesn't get to do, where it's like, we're not going to deal with the B story or all this ensemble cast. We're going to really focus on these characters. This is why you should never know people that work in the industry, because what I learned is that usually these episodes exist because they've gone over budget on the rest of the season, and they have to have one episode that's really cheap. And so it's like, if we have 2 characters in one location, bam, like that. We can knock that out, and it's not going to cost us anything. So that's apparently the reason they exist, but I'm glad they do, because this one, I think it is this cool sort of it's that sort of chess match thing of who's winning and who's right and who's got the facts on their side and who is playing on emotion and how are they getting at each other. And it was stunning to watch.
I like to think that if and I presume it is true, of course, about the money, that's at least sort of that it's artistically based, and that they look at, it's not like, oh, we've run out of money, but we know what these are going to cost. We need to factor in 2 cheap episodes of these 10. Hey, I've always wanted to do this.
Yeah.
Let's hope it's
turn it into an opportunity.
Right, turn it into an opportunity.
I think in this case they did turn it into an opportunity, and it was something that I personally learned something from, and I didn't think I would ever really learn anything from this show, which is, I'm always entertained by it. Don't get me wrong, but yeah.
I feel like I learned a lot from the show, but I guess the show's about you and your people. I just mean young women.
My demographic.
Yeah, your demographic, and and it's not mine. It's neither my age group nor my. Obviously, it's about women, and they're super women. Their femininity is.
They're super complicated women.
Right, they're complicated women. I guess there are some of those. I've never met any. They all seem so straightforward.
They exist on television.
Yeah, I just figure I always have them totally figured out.
I think this was a great episode for Hannah as far as like her being so sort of complicated, and you love her, you hate her, and she's so self-absorbed. But this was a great episode for her to have the sort of character development that I know we talked about in the first episode of season 6. I was really hoping that she would get there because of all the characters, she's the one I've sort of struggled with the most as far as why have you not grown? And I really liked her interactions with this guy, Matthew Rhys, I think is the name of the actor, but I can't.
From The Americans.
Yeah, right. Her interactions and how he really challenged her, and she was like, "Oh, I guess all my assumptions were wrong," and like you really see her come to that realization, and then like, "Oh, just kidding," and. I don't. Are we allowed to spoil it exactly?
Well, yeah, it's a recap.
It's a
already seen the
recap.
show.
So let's discuss the prosthetic penis.
Yeah. So the end initially bummed me out because it took the gray area out of it. Then I watched the recap. I watched it on DVR, and then I went on demand so I could get the recap because I was super curious. And it was Jenny Connor and Judd Apatow and obviously and Lena Dunham talking about it, and they still talked about the gray area.
Yeah.
And I thought, but you eliminated the gray area.
But did you see the final shot of the episode? I think is very key. She's walking away, and this line of women is walking past her and into the building.
Totally, no question.
So it's like even if it's true, even if these allegations are out there in the world, there are still going to be women that are drawn to this guy because of his fame or his influence or whatever. And so it's like there's not like a neat, tidy ending.
No, there isn't a neat, tidy ending. But I thought my initial thought, and I'm not sure I still have the thought, but my initial thought was, oh, well, you just made it easy. Like you just made it easy when he takes his prosthetic penis out. Maybe it wasn't a prosthetic penis. I don't know. I've never seen Matthew Rhys's penis.
So I think that
not yet, anyway.
My perspective, my perspective
Hashtag goals.
was that my perspective is that the gray area still existed because even though she was uncomfortable with the idea of getting in bed with him, she obviously admired him. She had become one of the women that she had written about, right? She admired him, and so he asks her to do something that she's clearly uncomfortable doing. But she says okay, and she gets into bed. She could have said, no,
I'm not going to get in bed with you. I'll talk to you. Right?
And when these stories come up in the news regarding actual famous people, it's always, well, why did she get into bed with him? Why did she say yes? Why did that happen? And that's where you kind of touch on the gray area, where as a woman, as someone who might not have as much power, as someone who might adore or admire the person who's, coercing you, you feel kind of like torn and helpless, and I don't know. It was really interesting to see that because the gray area still exists.
Yeah, the gray area exists because I think the way that it plays out is basically he's saying, look, my side of the story is I haven't done anything untoward. I just sort of put this vibe out there. People respond to it, and then they participate. And then if they have second thoughts about it later, that's not on me. And he does that to her and draws her in and gets her to do the thing that he wants her to do. And then she realizes, oh shit, I just did that thing.
Yeah.
And so it's like now it's not this easy thing.
It's a different gray area.
And it's written so well because
you guys are smarter than I am.
It's not like Bill Cosby's putting roofie in her wine, allegedly.
I just have I'm sorry, go ahead, Grace.
Well, no, I was just going to say, and what I like about this particular episode is it's written so well is that we as the viewers are sort of in Hannah's position where we don't realize that we're being coerced, we're being played until the prosthetic penis is whipped out. So I read that it was a prosthetic penis.
Okay.
Was it?
I thought it was real. It looked very real.
I really should not be an expert on what is a real penis and what that looks like.
I'm just saying, if it was a fake penis, they've really advanced the technology.
Yeah.
I would be stunned if HBO would get away with a real penis.
And I don't think Matthew, I imagine, also it needed to be aroused a little.
Tumescent,
Right,
let's
right,
say.
exactly. It needed to have some tumescence.
So out of my depth.
So they, and that would, I imagine, would be difficult for an actor in that situation, and but anyway, it didn't matter. It did look real, and it certainly. So
it serves its purpose.
So as as white men in America, as we know, are under siege, and so cisgen. So I represent them on this panel, so I do have a moment of wondering, like, while you could feel bad for women who get, let's leave it solely at coerced, but all the decisions are their own. I mean, guys like him are not. They're not. they're not putting them under. There's no hypnosis. There's no hypnotic effect. They're just using their strengths to get their way, which is what we all try to do. And does that behavior warrant sort of a public shaming that could be more? Obviously, no one's arguing it warrants jail time, like loss of freedom. But does it warrant a public shaming and censure, which could ruin your career and certainly ruin the way people think about you going forward? And my initial instinct, coming from my background and not yours, and that's super relevant, is that no, it doesn't. And this is, and you, like, he may get a private group of people saying, you, sir, are a scumbag, right? But like writing about it and then having other people write about it. And then, as we know, we live at, he did a great point that, like, this is somebody blogs about it and then it's been written about and then you refer to the blog and then it might as well be fact.
Right.
Yeah, you make a really great point there. And that's the reason why the episode made me so uncomfortable, because it's easy to write about someone that you don't personally know and say terrible things about them without thinking about the ramifications on their life, right? Without thinking about how that could literally destroy their life, regardless of whether or not those allegations are true, right?
And are the allegations proportional to ruining their life? Like, even if they might be true, is it worth that?
That's right. So sorry to interrupt you, but he mentioned, I'm sitting here feeling sick at the idea or the thought of my daughter possibly reading this blog or this piece. And I really appreciated the episode for that reason, because again, it gives you insight into the person who is powerful, but who's dealing with, the gray area and individuals that he doesn't even know, adjudicating whether or not he did something wrong.
Yeah. But at the same time, I think Hannah makes a perfectly valid point when she talks about how this guy has the platform and the sort of, cultural power, and women are so often silenced when dealing with men like that. When you look at the actor who is accused of rather terrible things, and then because it's settled out of court and never actually, judged, in a courtroom, then the presumption is, oh, well, then I guess he didn't do it. And it's like, but the women don't have that same presumption of innocence or that same platform of talking about this thing or blowing this thing off or whatever. And I think that was interesting. And also I thought it was interesting that this kind of touches on the whole thing about the Woody Allen, Roman Polanski, like, I really love your work, and at the same time, I find your behavior despicable. Do I have to stop loving the work now?
Last night, Mel Gibson. I mean, just you read on Twitter the way people reacted to him being there, him nominated, him winning. His movie winning a couple of Oscars. Yeah, and I thought what they also did a great job with is complicating that guy's life. So still, at the end, obviously, you can't make that move, right? You can let them make that move, but you can't make that move, right? So there's that. But then after that, so after her shock, and she throws the book away, like, I'm not taking your gift, which was all part of your ruse, right? Then she sees legitimately a father who loves and supports his daughter. Like it complicates
that
it. That
was eerie, though.
Right, so he's not.
It was so uncomfortable.
Right, but to me, I thought that meant, like, wow, so he's not. Like, if this is monstrous behavior, it's a monstrous behavior here. He's not a monster all the time, and he does love his daughter.
It's interesting that was your perspective, because what I thought as I was watching that was Hannah is looking at this guy who's obviously a sketchy character, looking at his daughter in this, like, admirable way, like appreciating his daughter, loving his daughter, and it's like, well, that's a young woman right there, right? That's the kind of person that, if it wasn't your daughter, you might take advantage of. I saw it as Hannah looking at him like, you're a piece of shit, you're a hypocrite.
I think it was unclear, and I think that was definitely one of the possibilities. Then in the talk, they suggested that their intent was to have him be a good dad and to her see that, but also,
and it's not impossible to be a good dad and a sleaze bucket towards women you're not related to.
Totally. That's really my aspiration in life, to be a good dad. But no, but also Jenny Connor had a different interpretation of. She's Lena Dunham's producing partner and an EP on the show, and maybe she was kidding, but her perspective on the move, right, the unbuckling, we'll call it, on the unbuckling was that was not his plan the entire time. That was, he got in this moment, and then once he's in those moments where for the first time they connected. He's looking for a connection, and when they connected, that's the move he makes. I don't know.
And I think what makes the
you
show
thought the whole plan was all orchestrated to get to
That's
that
what
moment.
it felt like.
I think,
To me,
I
too.
think at a point it was. I don't think it began that way, but I think at a point, especially
There's a
like when he
pivot.
gives her the book, there's sort of a pivot where
Maybe
that
she was
does
kidding, and I
become-
missed the.
But the
missed that,
ultimate
too.
thing here, though, is that it would be very easy for the show to be like, "Oh, how terrible he pulled his penis out," but then to have Hannah grab it
Right.
makes her complicit now. And,
That's right,
And,
yeah.
and so now she has to consider all of the everything that happened, all the previous transgressions, and what moment those got to, and how much the women participated, even if they maybe later regretted it or regretted it while it was happening. You know.
All right, it's gray. It's gray area again.
No,
You
it is
convinced me.
super gray
Yeah,
area.
yeah.
That's what's so great about the
Yeah.
show, because TV does not give us a lot of gray areas. So
Yeah.
And their
I like that there's
conversation-
there's stuff to argue about. here.
Conversation afterwards worth watching also.
Okay.
All right, good stuff. I assume episode 4 will get everybody back. I like that they do a previously on Girls, even though none of it.
I know.
Completely
This is going to
irrelevant.
be we're previously on Girls. This movie. Like,
Right. Yeah. All right. So thanks everybody. This was fun.